In 2023, the New York Attorney General's office received 149 complaints of deed theft. In 2024, that number was 517, a 240% surge in a single year across all five boroughs, targeting people who have done nothing wrong except own a home in the wrong city at the wrong time. This is not a story about squatters refusing to leave a rental. This is a story about something far more dangerous: a coordinated, increasingly sophisticated form of property fraud where strangers transfer the legal ownership of your home into their name without you ever knowing it happened. And by the time you find out, the law is already on their side. This is how it works. Why it's exploding right now and why the city's own court system is the reason scammers keep winning. The two types of theft. There are two ways someone steals a home in New York City. The first is occupation. Someone moves into a property they do not own, refuses to leave, and accumulates just enough fraudulent paperwork, such as fake lease agreements, forged utility bills, and doctored mail, to claim they have been there long enough to qualify as a tenant. Once that threshold is crossed, removing them stops being a police matter, and it becomes a housing court case. That means months, sometimes years, of legal process that the rightful owner must fund themselves while the squatter lives in the home for free. The second is far worse. The second is deed theft. And this is where the real money is. Deed theft is when the legal title to your property, the document that says you own it, is transferred out of your name and into someone else's using forged signatures, stolen identities, and fraudulent filings submitted to city records. You don't have to be evicted. You don't have to be home when it happens. You can be sitting in your kitchen drinking coffee while somewhere across the city, a complete stranger files paperwork that legally transfers ownership of your house to a shell company you have never heard of. And in New York, by the time you find out, the courts may already be the only thing standing between you and homelessness. The mechanics. A scammer identifies a target, typically an elderly homeowner in a community of color, frequently someone whose property has appreciated significantly over the past decade. Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx are the hottest zones because that is where property values have climbed fastest and where intergenerational homeowners are most concentrated. The scammer obtains the target's personal information. Sometimes this information is bought from data breaches. Sometimes it is harvested from public records. Increasingly, it is generated using AI tools that can fabricate convincing identification documents, like driver's licenses, social security cards, and birth certificates, at a level of detail that would have required a professional forger a decade ago. Then the scammer files a deed transfer with the city. The forged signature of the rightful owner appears on the transfer document. A notary stamp is fabricated or stolen. The paperwork moves through the New York City Department of Finance and gets recorded in the public record. The legal title now belongs to someone else. The rightful owner does not get a phone call, does not get a letter. There is no system that notifies a homeowner when the deed to their property has been transferred. Many people do not find out until they try to refinance, sell, or pay their property taxes and then discover that, according to city records, they no longer own their home. By that point, the scammer has often already taken out a mortgage against the property, sold it to a third party, or used it as collateral. The money is gone, the chain of title is contested, and the original owner is now in court. The 15-year fight. Rachel Cyprian is a Brooklyn homeowner. She has been fighting for 15 years to reclaim ownership of a house she had already bought, paid for, and lived in. Her deed was stolen. The legal process to reverse a fraudulent deed transfer in New York City is slow and expensive, and structurally tilted against the rightful owner. Every motion takes months. Every hearing gets rescheduled. Every appeal extends the timeline by another year. She has spent a decade and a half of her life inside a court system that was supposed to protect her, fighting to get back something that was already legally hers. She is not alone. The New York City Attorney General's office estimates that the targets of deed theft are disproportionately seniors and homeowners in communities of color, populations that built generational wealth through homeownership, often in neighborhoods where property values have surged in the past 20 years. That generational wealth is exactly what scammers are stealing. The Queens case. In Queens last year, a man named Mang Yu purchased a house in Kew Gardens. He bought it from a bank. He had the paperwork. He had the closing documents. His wife wanted to move in immediately to shorten her commute. When they arrived at the house, a woman was already living there. She refused to leave. She claimed she owned the property. When Mang Yu pulled the city records, the timeline made no sense. The property changed hands twice in a single day. In 2006, that second transfer, the one that ended up in the woman's name, was not filed with the city until 2018, 12 years later. In a separate bankruptcy filing the previous year, the same woman told the court under oath that she did not own any property at all. The Queens District Attorney's Office is investigating. Mang Yu is locked out of the home he legally purchased. He is paying the property taxes, the utilities, and the legal fees on a house he cannot enter, while the woman who claims to own it lives there for free. The case is unresolved, the investigation is ongoing, and the timeline, based on Rachel Cyprian's case and others like it, could stretch for years. Why the courts cannot keep up. This is the structural reason deed theft is exploding. New York City's housing court system was built for an older, slower kind of dispute. Landlord-tenant disagreements, lease violations, and rent arrears. It was not built for organized property fraud at scale. When a deed theft case is filed, it does not go to criminal court immediately. It goes to civil court, where the burden of proof is on the rightful owner to prove the transfer was fraudulent. That requires forensic document examination, identity verification, and often expert testimony, all of which the homeowner has to pay for, while the scammer continues to occupy or profit from the property. Criminal prosecution, when it happens, is rare. Earlier this year, prosecutors charged a man with stealing identities to commit deed fraud on multiple homes. He pleaded guilty. A judge sentenced him to 4 to 9 years in prison. Investigators still do not know his real name. That is the level of identity sophistication these cases involve. The man convicted of the crime, who served as the face of the operation, was himself operating under a stolen identity that prosecutors were never able to penetrate. Most cases never get that far. The Queens District Attorney's Office, the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office, and the Manhattan District Attorney's Office all face the same constraint. Too many cases, too few investigators, and too many obstacles between a complaint being filed and a prosecution being brought. By the time charges are filed, scammers have often moved on, sold the properties, and disappeared. The AI acceleration. Here is what is making this worse fast. The same generative AI tools that can write essays and create images can also fabricate identification documents at a level that overwhelms most verification systems. Birth certificates, social security cards, driver's licenses, notary stamps. Signatures matched to public records. Tools that previously required organized criminal networks with specialized equipment are now available through consumer software. The verification systems that the New York City Department of Finance relies on were designed before this was possible. They check whether a document looks correct. They do not always check whether the person submitting it is who they say they are. And once a fraudulent deed is recorded in the public registry, reversing it requires the rightful owner to prove the negative, that a transfer they had nothing to do with was fraudulent. The fraud is getting faster. The verification is staying the same. Why now? Why this surge? Because New York City's property market has created the conditions where deed theft is one of the highest return financial crimes available. Rental vacancy in New York City is at 1.4%, the lowest level recorded in the modern era. Average rent has crossed $5,000 per month. The median family with children needs $159,197 per year just to afford the city. That kind of price pressure means homes that were worth $400,000 a decade ago are now worth $1.2 million. A scammer who can fraudulently transfer a deed and either sell the property quickly or use it as collateral for a fraudulent mortgage can extract hundreds of thousands of dollars in a matter of weeks, often before the rightful owner even knows the transfer has occurred. The financial incentive has never been higher. The detection systems have never been further behind. That gap produced 517 complaints in a single year, and the trajectory shows no signs of slowing. 149 complaints in 2023, 517 in 2024, a 240% surge in 1 year, in one city, against one of the most basic protections in American law: the right to keep the home you legally own. Brooklyn Councilman Chi Osi has called for a moratorium on evictions in cases where deed theft is pending or under investigation. Governor Hochul has proposed $40 million in the state budget for a homeowner protection program. Legislative proposals are in motion for special investigative units inside district attorneys' offices and a public database of shell companies linked to deed fraud. But the structural reality remains. The court system is backlogged, the verification systems are outdated, the financial incentive is climbing, and the targets, seniors, working-class homeowners, families who built equity over decades, are exactly the people with the least resources to fight a 15-year court battle. If you own property in New York City, the system that is supposed to protect your title is operating with tools built for a slower, simpler era. The scammers have already adapted. The homeowners are still catching up.